forbidden snacks.
Oh
Forbidden
man,
snacks.
Yeah,
Yes.
not that live, John.
It's like
What's
it's
that?
like forbidden snacks. It's like stuff that you want to eat but you're not allowed to eat. That's how I feel about that.
it's just a weird thing to drop in on and go live.
You're not allowed to eat.
Forbidden
That's the
snacks.
best is when
Right.
people join
Oh,
us
no.
live completely out
better-
of context.
It's better. You have to turn it to the audience. So if you're in the audience watching this, please comment your favorite forbidden snack.
This guy's
That sounds like it could go some really horrible places. Because there's someone in the audience that's like toes.
What about Play-Doh? I feel like Play-Doh always looks so appetizing.
It is. It's made out of flour mostly.
You can eat it, right?
You're not supposed to.
What?
You're not
It's like
supposed
raw it's raw flour. Like
Yeah,
You're
you're
not
not supposed
supposed
to
to eat Play-Doh. Wow, this is news to me. Wade.
as someone who's ate Play-Doh, let me tell you, you should not.
This is why you come to this news show. Breaking news. You should not eat Play-Doh.
That's it, everybody. Thank you. Thermal paste.
Oh yeah, thermal paste does look good. It's like
You'll
a weird. Yeah,
You'll cool down too as you eat it, right? Like that's how.
Desiccants.
So,
Don't
like
eat
if you ever
crust.
burn the roof of your mouth, just smear thermal paste all over.
Yeah.
it.
forbidden snacks.
Gwen
meaning, like,
brought
if
in.
you-
What does it mean forbidden? Well, Gwen, that's up to you now, isn't it?
For interpretation.
I mean, there was that guy that ate like an entire Cessna airplane, so it can be forbidden and you still eat it.
Was his name?
I feel like that's not a
Jeremy.
snack, though. That's at
by
least
any
a
chance?
meal.
Straight maple syrup. Mine is V8 because I'm pretty sure I'm the only one in the country that drinks that stuff, like the low sodium
man.
V8.
You really?
I like V8s, but I just never buy them. Like I don't know anyone over the age of like 30 or like who buys.
Didn't I tell you guys
V8s?
the story about my V8 addiction though?
No, I never heard this one.
So when I was at DerbyCon, they always like to ice you, and I stopped drinking a number of years ago, and they tried to ice me, and the backup was lukewarm, spicy, hot V8, and they'd be like, "Well, you got to drink this now," and I'm like, "That's good." Hand me another one, and I loved it. And I kept drinking it. Yeah. I celebrate the entire V8 catalog: the spicy hot, the low sodium, the original. Once you get into the fruity V8, though, that crap's
V8
like,
splash. You're not splashing around.
no, I'm not splashing. I'm not. No,
I
that's
imagine
sewage.
John has a mini fridge stocked with just.
So what are your
I
feelings on
do.
Clamato?
Actually, you mentioned that. I've got a fridge like right over there, and it's stocked with V8. Like I'm
It's
not
not even a mini fridge; it's a full size.
It's a regular fridge.
Well, yeah,
John,
that's true.
go big or go home.
I'm the owner
a
of the
giant
company. You
mini
think I roll
fridge.
with mini fridges?
See, he disappeared. I wanted to get his feelings on Clamato. Like what other tomato-based beverages is John into?
Right? Like I like V8s, but I also really like micheladas. But that's if you don't
What?
drink, you're not michelada. Have you never had a michelada?
Enchilada?
Oh, he's gonna.
Oh,
man.
ASMR.
Whoa.
Drinking.
Oh,
John
wow.
drinking ASMR.
Oh, he drunk it off
When's
camera.
this
We don't know
Clamato
that he actually drinks it. He was
I-
off
Is
camera during.
John's trying to John's slowly working through all the kinks on this news show. First the toes, now this.
So the sponsor of today's show is
John had
V8.
a toast ready to go for some reason. He had that way too quick.
V8 does not taste good coming back up through my sinuses. You a-hole.
Ugh.
Oh,
John, I still want to know what's your feelings on Clamato.
On what?
Clamato.
It sounds like a disease.
What is it?
Is it like
Oh, you never
clan
heard of
favorite
Clamato?
beverage?
Oh, please, by all means,
oh,
look
your
it
newest
up.
addiction.
Yeah, my newest addiction.
Maybe that's
I
the
don't
Newman's
know.
own brand.
Newman's Own. I'll have to try it. Are we ready to kick this thing off and like do serious security stuff?
Kick
I
the
think
bucket.
it's
We
time.
do serious security
There's-
stuff here.
There's so much of it. We should get started.
All right.
Rolling the finger.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Black Hills Information Security, talking about news. And this is, as near as I can tell, it's one of those. It's one of those episodes. It's now time for a very important episode of Black Hills Information Security, talking about news. Everything is compromised, freaking everywhere. Our news stories today are just like breaches are raining from the sky. And you know it's going to be a great show whenever the EFF is referencing Jerry Bantham in their write-ups, which is just cool. So if you wrote that article from the EFF, I got that reference. And I'm going to talk about that reference when we get there. But I am joined by my illustrious cast. Just a group of great people that'll soon jump on screen with all of us. We've got Ryan, who makes us just like look and sound just amazing. I am joined by Noah, who actually, I like the color correction. I think he nailed it. He got the color correction, and the rest of us honestly can try harder. Chris is joining us. Hey, Chris, thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it. Mike, who's here like all the time. We appreciate it. Ian and the 5 Muppets that make up Ian are also present. Corey, who's like, the co-host. And we also are joined, everybody, by Wade's mustache, which coincidentally has brought Wade along as well, which I think is just fantastic. By the way, that is epic. Do you do that? So if you get pulled over by like the highway patrol, they like roll up to the side of your car and they're like, "You one of us, man. You one of us."
I'm hoping for that moment one day. I've already been asked if I'm a cop once, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, you're waiting for your McLovin moment where they take you out and they drive you around. You go shooting cans, and you're like, "These are my people."
It's the dream,
and that's how we became chief of police.
This is like the geekiest version of the YMCA, or what is it? The Village People right now in Infosec Village People going on at the moment. All right, so let's go ahead and let's get rolling. My leadoff story I want to talk about. And here's the deal. While we're reading through this, I want everybody to say pause whenever they can have a witty comeback for this particular article. This is China accuses the U.S. of tens of thousands of cyber attacks. And this is a game, and I want to show you guys and explain to you how this game works. While I'm reading it, if you can think of a witty like snapback or a burn based on that previous paragraph, you just stop, and then we have the witty burn. Mine is China accuses the U.S. of tens of thousands of cyber attacks, and I would respond with, I didn't know China was that bad at math.
I was going to say they're missing a lot there. Those are rookie numbers,
right? All right. So Washington has accused Beijing of cyber attacks against U.S. businesses. Anytime you want to stop me, just stop me, and I will drop some in here as well. Businesses and government agencies, one of the issues over which is ties to two powers, have nosedived in recent years.
I also heard that water's wet.
Excellent.
When did we finally play the Uno reverse card?
They finally played the Uno. You guys are getting it right off the bat. China has consistently denied the claims and in turn lashed out against alleged U.S. cyber espionage, but has rarely made public disclosures of specific attacks.
But denial is a river in Egypt. They got the wrong country.
Yeah. But a report released on Monday by the National Computer Virus Emergency Response Center, also known as CERVIRC, accused the U.S. National Security Agency of carrying out tens of thousands of malicious attacks in their network targeting China in recent years.
Also known as Nmap.
Wait, hold on. What is CERVIRC? Is that did they make up CERVIRC for a press release? Like, has anyone heard of this before?
It's CERVIRC, I think, is their CERT in China.
Oh, okay.
All right. Now this next one I got.
Why would the Chinese name it English names though?
Shouldn't it be like,
I don't know.
It's probably a lot cooler in Chinese. All right, we all know
it's probably called like Lashing Dragon, Hacking
Death
Dragon.
Team.
Oh no, it's like super happy fun time computer emergency go.
Come on.
It specifically accused the NSA's Office of Tailor Access Operations of infiltrating Northwestern Polytechnical University in the city of Xi'an. Now, I'm going to shoot back at that one and say, no, it didn't, because if it was TAO, you wouldn't have caught them. The university is funded by China's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology and specializes in aeronautical and space research. Come on, this one's a T-ball. You guys got this one.
Well, first off, that division is a subdivision of the reverse engineering portion of innovation.
I was gonna say, did we break in to steal back the Saturn
That's-
V design?
Bingo! Yes.
We're like, actually, hold on, we lost this because we defunded NASA, so we're just gonna hack back in and take it back because we forgot how to build rockets.
That's
The
called
China-
a backup, Corey.
Backups in China.
Storing from backup.
We're
just so
storing from
awesome.
backup. Hold on, where are the backups at? Oh, we're at this university in China. We actually lost access.
They
We'll get
think
it.
they took it. We gave it to them so they'd keep it safe for us.
They accused the TAO of stealing over 140 gigs of high-value data in recent years and received assistance from groups in Europe, Southeast Asia, and Cybercrime said in the report, which was co-authored by the private cyber firm in China called Quaihu 360.
Oh, I think they actually make my cameras.
There is no such
that I
thing as a
use.
private Chinese cybersecurity firm. They're just all the Chinese government.
Correct. Just like Israeli companies are not Israeli private companies, but ran by Israel. Very good. Excellent. The foreign ministry in Beijing on Monday condemned the alleged attack, saying it seriously endangers China's national security and users' personal data security. Just let
Stop
that.
keeping your
let
user
that
personal
soak.
data
Let
inside
that
of your
soak in.
university servers.
Yeah, and
Next to
like
your rocket.
personal. Like, when did China care about people's privacy in China, unless they were a bunch of Uyghurs in a camp?
Well, no,
That's
they've
all.
been they've been very
Ooh.
like respectful of people's privacy if they oppose the government.
Yeah, and
They
put
don't
them
want
in
their
camps.
information getting out.
Right.
It depends on your social score, right? If you score a 10, you get a little privacy. You don't get watched while you go poop. But if you score a 5, like, oh, you're
Did
I don't
they
know what
steal?
happens.
I'm sorry. Did they copycat press releases accusing other countries of things? Like, is that?
I think they did, actually. I think they literally copied and pasted
oh,
it.
that was good.
But they like.
Wait, is this the part where we reference a private security firm in their investigation?
They're like, we need to make one of those. Someone go make one of those so we can reference it.
Lyle's going political in the comments. He's like, Hillary Clinton. Look, glass houses, dude. Glass houses. We're not going to go down politics. Don't drag us down.
Also, you're a dog, so you shouldn't be like woofing.
We're not that kind of
Profile
dude.
pic-
I don't know.
On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog, so it's cool.
The dogs are getting political. What do we do?
Yeah. So and we try to go political every
They
once
score
in a
pretty
while.
high on the social economical scores.
But
so.
I think that's enough. But what a funny story. I think it kind of nailed it. You guys nailed it with, it looks like a template, like an absolute template on exactly how you call out cyber
AI.
espionage.
It's got to be AI written. They just fed it all the security accusations.
Speaking of AI, it's Bronwyn, who looks like a dead Jedi in her colored
Okay.
Help me, Obi-Wan
keep it,
Kenobi.
Keep
You're
it,
my
Bronwyn.
home.
Bronwyn, it looks awesome. You look like you're at the end of a Star Wars movie to give us the advice that we should have had 2 hours prior in the movie.
Use the Force, John.
Should I go get my lightsaber?
Yes, let's
Is he-
complete
Okay.
it. Yes.
Okay.
We got
on my
Jedi
way.
Bronwyn is
She's
back.
actually gonna
The
do
power
it.
of Elon Musk's satellite technology. There she goes.
She's going for it.
How long do you think till China like puts a ban on some person coming in for hacking? Like how we have like
I'm sure I'm already banned for going.
J-
out.
That has to have already happened.
for this alone, this newscast. But
Yeah, this alone right here. But I saw the Olympics in Beijing, and I'm just going to tell you, it wasn't a very good brochure for that country. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I want to go there. No. I don't even think I can go to China anyway, for other reasons.
For what you said 5 minutes ago.
You know, what we should do. He has it.
John is
And she brought Chewbacca as well. There's the hologram of Bronwyn there. We're set. This just made my day.
same
Now,
pixel
Bronwyn,
rate.
if you could make your dog go, that would be great.
No,
All right.
I'm that well trained. Sorry.
So next story, speaking of countries I can never go to, this is a Newsweek article, which is weird because Newsweek very rarely has good news. Apparently, hackers are honey trapping Russian troops into sharing their location, and their bases are promptly bombed.
This is a play straight out of the deception class. I'm just saying, right?
Oh, for sure.
You're right, because it's right in that section of slides where I'm like, use sex so you can bomb people.
Oh, they're doing it. Yeah, they're doing it with conventionally attractive women. I like how that. Yeah, is it like on Tinder? It's like, where are you at? Let's meet up. Oh, I'm at the military base. Not a problem. Just tell me.
Where's that at?
You need to
Just tell me the exact coordinates in azimuth.
And it's funny because there's
Take
actually
a picture
quote,
of the sky.
There's actually a quote right here from Kinish, one of the people in Ukraine that's doing this. He basically just said the Russians, they always want to beep. They send a lot of shit to girls to prove that they are warriors, including their locations.
Oh man,
Look,
this.
But Corey, was it you that said that it felt like this was months ago? You felt like the Ukrainian war was like Looney Tunes. Like you were just waiting for drones to drop anvils out of the sky.
Yes, well, this is the next step. Now it's like, literally, this might as well just say Ukraine would like to know your location. Approve.
No, it's not even that. Corey, you already had it. It's literally
the air
whole
tag.
Bugs Bunny dressed up as the Lady Bunny and Elmer Fudd.
Right.
It's the whole. You got the whole thing.
We found these air tags on the tanks. What do we do with them now? They're just everywhere. Like someone
Put
keeps
them-
putting.
You know what? I want to create a meme that's an air tag. Dear Russian soldiers, if you find this, put it in your boot for luck. But this is so. But it's. Do you think that PsyOps is this bad, or OPSEC is this bad for every military, or is it just that the level of quality of the Russians that are in the military right now is this poor?
It's that bad.
I think it's both.
I think it's a modern war, right? Like we haven't really seen a modern war where everyone has the power of computing and communication in their hand yet to this level, right? Where technology is working, all right?
Yes.
Unlike
Where technology is working.
Unlike the Middle East, where there's not going to be cell towers as much, but here everyone's up to par. I think that's one of the big things that we're missing as well.
Oh yeah, I would say anytime you have the lowest common denominator, so to speak, is responsible for physical security, you're gonna have gaps, and we've seen this not just in war, but in everywhere. If you rely on every employee to secure the building isn't secure. You have to you can't do that.
It's your fight.
And I also
watch the door, Bob.
There was that whole issue with the U.S. DoD not that long ago that folks would go and run around the bases, and this was back when Fitbit would publicly put your data up.
It was
that's weird. There's this place in the middle of the desert where people just run in
a heat map.
circles.
A heat map.
Huh.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the Strava
Interesting how
incident.
that works. Strava is awesome.
Yeah.
It is, unless you are trying to hide your secret military base. Then it's less awesome.
Well, it's funny. Yeah, unless you're trying to hide it. So, and I also feel really horrible because I think that this goes into a user awareness. Like, there's got to be a lesson to be learned here as I'm waiting for the Jedi Nitrous to bring it out. There's got to be a lesson to be learned here. And one of those things is training people, right?
Right.
Like, we know that the troops that are doing this, they're literally getting 2 weeks of training and they're getting loaded up and they're getting shipped off to Ukraine. They think that everything's going to be just fine. And seriously, it's just they're not preparing these people well enough for what they're going into.
No, and I think it's basically hard to train people. Everything you do with your cell phone is the enemy's property after it leaves your cell phone, basically. And then it's a tough dynamic to get across. Like, oh, this picture has geolocation information. Oh, someone can just ask where I'm at, or like the crazy depth that the internet can go to find where someone is based on pictures or other things. Like there's that documentary about like don't mess with cats or whatever, where a guy was abusing cats and taking pictures of them and posting them, and people were like, they like looked out the window and saw like a certain tree and they were like, we found the zip code where this guy lives. And like it's crazy how in depth it can go. Like we've seen it with CSAM. Like people will take like a photo and in the background they'll like identify a certain radio that was like only sold in a certain area. Like it's crazy how much data is there to dig through.
There was that one where I think Shia LaBeouf put a flag up right? Or
Right,
something.
yeah.
And then it was just looking at the flag in the sky,
Yep.
and people are able to track it down via the contrails of airplanes, and which
Or the
And then-
contrails of airplanes, or like the stars. Like
And
it's
then
just
they hiked out there and pulled it down.
Yes, they did.
Which I'm just gonna say, like, I don't remember what was on the flag or anything, but total a-hole move and
I think it-
brilliantly funny at the same time.
Yeah, but the point is, if you're a Russian soldier, the training is like, don't do anything to anyone for any reason ever. Like it's like,
Yeah.
you know,
If you have incredibly attractive women that are talking to you, remember you're a backwoods redneck Russian missing all of your teeth.
But they're in my area. It says they're in my area,
Yeah,
right?
right
Like they
in my
got to be
area.
around
They're
here
close.
somewhere. Are they in the barn?
Single
or
and ready to
like-
mingle.
Hot singles in forward operating base.
They said
I'm
they'll
in the
give me-
forward operating.
They'll
I don't
even
think
said
the term
Okay,
is
actually-
in your area anymore. It should
they
be
did-
within
they did
strike
call
distance.
what, Bronwyn?
That
Within
needed-
strike distance.
within
Bronwyn?
hot singles within strike distance of your location.
right.
No, the bit about your phone telling everybody everything about you is also great for conspiracy theorists who think that if they get vaccinated, they're going to be chipped. It's like the government
point.
doesn't need to chip you. They already know everything they could possibly want to know because of your phone.
Right.
Speaking of crazy ass conspiracy theories, let's talk about the EFF article, Fog Data Science.
Oh,
Did,
yeah.
did you all read this?
Not yet.
No,
Oh
this is
my
like the
God.
one I haven't read.
I'm very
Oh.
scared.
So this one has the Jerry Bantham reference, and I want to see if anybody in the audience can find the Jerry Bantham reference in this particular article. So there's a bunch of firms out there that are basically collecting all kinds of geolocation information, and this is just another company that is hooking into just crazy amounts of data. And you can search for specific devices. You can do searches on specific locations. Once you get that location, you can get a full pattern of life for the devices and the people. So it can show things like where the device owner sleeps, where they work, where they study, where they worship, any of their associates. And they can also pull anonymous devices back to individuals as well. And, you know, once again, I think Bronwyn absolutely nailed it. People are all worried that you're going to get chipped by Bill Gates whenever you're literally carrying around a mass surveillance device out there. And what are they saying? Fog Data Science's proprietary platform has been architected with massive scale in mind and provides predictive analytics and near real-time insights on how people go about their daily lives. 250 million devices each month, 15 billion location signals each day, 10 million fenced points of interest, 1 million daily events, US and international data. So there's all these different data brokers that exist out there. And like, if you're looking at things like Twitter, you're looking at ad data, you're looking at Facebook, all of these different groups will sell subsets of data to various organizations for the right amount of money. This is very similar to what we saw with the Cambridge Analytica stuff moving up to the election in 2016, and how they were actually able to utilize ads and see how those would spread, and then basically pull and correlate that data and come up with really, really targeted profile advertisements for those people as it related to political ads. So this is just yet another company that has this. And I think what's interesting is this isn't just an issue for law enforcement. I mean, this stuff can be used in a wide variety of different things, anywhere from law enforcement, of course, defense contractors, and also looking at advertisements, like very targeted political ads in specific geolocations. It's kind of ridiculous, the amount of information that we give away constantly. And we've talked about it on the show a lot, and I kind of want to open this up. This is an area of security. I think it absolutely is. But one of the things I've wanted to ask is kind of a different way of looking at it is, this is something we're not testing, right? And when we're testing access. Can we hack into it? But I don't think there's anyone testing saying, what is all the horrific things that can be done with this level of data? We're not asking those questions. And how the hell do we get to that point if things aren't tested? Sparks flying. Can they please tell me when a truck needs an oil change? But I don't know. How do we end up testing these things?
I don't know how we end up testing them, but I will say it is an unfortunate truth that many of the largest organizations that have the type and scale data that can be used for the type of data science they're talking about, inevitably you hear some news story about them firing their ethics team or firing. There was it's not listed in here, but there was a story recently about all the ethics and innovation folks at Facebook being dismantled, like when trusted computing was dismantled at Microsoft and spread over. And it seems like every time these organizations say, hey, maybe we should think about how this data we have could be weaponized, that I have a feeling some meeting happens and they go, oh yeah, we're not going to explore that further.
Well,
we're just going to kick that.
So
under there.
where does it even come from? Where does all this data come from? Like
you can actually pay, well, there's a bunch of points where they actually get the data. But whenever you're getting into like, I don't know if I should share my screen, probably give too much information away, but you can get an account someplace like TransUnion. And TransUnion, like we sometimes use this on our tests, right? We can put in a name, put in a location like a city, find an individual, and for $5, we can get their credit card information, their license plates, all of their loans. With their license plates, you can see if that license plate was seen by any traffic cameras in cities. So you have cities that have traffic cameras and they're collecting money from people running red lights, but then they're also selling that data to data brokers. You have financial institutions that you have a loan with. They're making money off of you for that loan, but then they're also selling that information off the back end as well. Phone companies, cell phone companies are making money off of selling your data, and these large brokers basically then take all of this data, or they take the data from the brokers and then aggregators pull all that data into a single platform. Mm-hmm. So it really comes from anywhere that anybody can track anything about you, which is almost everything. They're selling it out the ass end to a whole bunch of data aggregators and data brokers as well.
Okay,
I think that this comes down into a two-part question. Is number one, how do we figure out or think about the worst case scenarios? And there's an answer, and that's watch the conspiracy theorists. They always have that worst case scenario. The harder question is, how do we test it ourselves?
Exactly.
And that's where it gets confusing, and that's where some of the ethics might come in, because maybe the only way of doing it is by purchasing some of the data ourselves.
Well, and if you remember, Stephen Colbert did that. Stephen Colbert did that. He actually posted an ad, put it out, and then like I can't remember, it was like some erotic fan fiction by Ted Cruz or something like that, and a whole bunch of people in DC clicked on that ad. Right? I mean, that literally happened.
I did link that video. So for those who are interested in that, like, go check the video out in Discord. But I did link it. Where he did do that. He ran 3 ads, but yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, and the New York Times did a story not that long ago about the cell tower data and being able to track who is coming in and out of the White House and approximations within the executive branch of where they actually were and how often they were there, and that was all from public data.
And you know what's interesting is that data so what's interesting is from a legal perspective, you have signaling versus content data. When you're looking at the United States and you're looking specifically at law enforcement and even military to a lesser extent. Signaling data is data that is required to allow things to go from point A to point B. So if you're looking at cell phone data, your location is something that you have to give publicly because it has to route it from tower to tower to tower, drop down into an IP network, go to another set of towers to find that other person. So you have no reasonable expectation of privacy for that because it has to be routed. Same thing with TCP IP header information. TCP IP header data, you have no right to privacy over because you make it public. And all of this goes back to Supreme Court decisions back in the 60s about envelopes and how the data that you put on an envelope, source, destination, address, that is not data that you have no right to privacy because it's required for it to get routed from one point to another. Call data, if you plug into a regular old phone back in the old days, you had no right to privacy of this phone number called this phone number for this period of time because you have to give up that data for the phone to freaking work. So it's interesting because we have these dilemmas as far as being able to track people, track individuals, but there's very little like recourse or protection on that data because of the legal statutes that are basing it on an envelope.
Well, it's not, they say it's not personally identifiable information.
Right.
I assume that's totally not true.
Not identifiable.
That's what they're, I don't know specifically what, and to your greater question, John, how do we test it? We get a license. I mean, we like, dude, let's do it. I mean, let's see what we can do with it. I mean, it's
Let's
that
make
simple.
it happen. Corey, we got an R&D project.
Yeah, easy.
Let's
yeah,
make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, and I think when you start demonstrating, like BHIS used a data broker to purchase the exact location of this employee's house, sent them a USB stick, they plugged it into their workstation. Now people are like, well, what? What did you do?
Now that's crossing a line at that point.
I have problems with thinking about this and then explain it without going purely evil and without also like sounding like a tinfoil hat. Like, how do I logically talk about this without being like, oh yeah, I could use this to track people, and then, or like, imagine, so if going off the deep end, if this, I guess this is like Pegasus. Imagine if a mafia bought this, or a cartel bought that data.
But they are.
They are exactly right. Now but I don't want to sound like an alarmist or tinfoil hat wearing. Then you just hire a data analyst on some part-time job and say, hey, this is the exact MAC address, give me everything, and then boom, like it can get really messy really quick.
But we've talked about this in previous shows, right? Like we talked about the NSO group, and I think that they're kind of the equivalent, I don't want to say a worst case scenario, but one of the worst case scenarios, where you have a group that is hooked in with ad data, backed by a nation state that can utilize this to deliver targeted ads to specific devices and individuals with zero-click exploits. And once again, no oversight, no testing. Like you don't see a lot of DEF CON and Black Hat talks where people are like, well, we just cracked the lid on this thing to see how bad it was from a security perspective. We're not seeing that. And if it's not being tested, and that's one of my major concerns, and this goes back to a lot of us that do offensive stuff, there's a ton of organizations and even large organizations with deep pockets who they bring us in and they say, hey, we want you to test this. We've never had anybody test it before. And every time it is a freaking dumpster fire because it's never been looked at. And I can only imagine, like, especially after Mudge leaving Twitter and basically telling everyone it's a dumpster fire over there, folks, that there's no way that if you're looking at fog data services, there's no way that their security is like rock solid. It just can't be.
Well, the other thing you have to bear in mind is it's one thing when it's available theoretically. Oh, the NSA can do this. The Fort Meade, they have 10 million servers. It's another thing when you can purchase it for like sub 10K a year. Like that's like super cheap. That's within the budget of every law enforcement department in the United States.
And they're setting their pricing so they can make it in the budget of every law enforcement.
It's not like, it's not like, oh, this is a Black Hawk helicopter that some police station can buy for like $10 million. This is like everyone can have this, and it's not hard to use.
No, and the story mentions it too, that's what local law enforcement groups are doing. And that other tool, Clearview AI, that was able to go through and scrape all of the social media posts for pictures, create a, face type signature, and then say, oh, we've seen them in these other data sources in these places. Law enforcement is doing this not just because it's affordable, but because it's faster. They don't have to go through all the warrants and all the legal things that we count on as citizens. They don't have to.
And I guarantee you the false positive rate is absurd. What was it?
When you have something like this, how do you cut costs?
Yeah,
you
false
decrease the quality of your data.
Yeah, and I mean, like, dude, there was the classic one where, like, the Amazon facial recognition, they ran through, like, all the Congress headshots, and they were, like, 70% of them were matched as criminals. It was like...
No, it's closer to 100.
Yeah. So.
Probably 70% of them were criminals at some point.
You got a point. Maybe it wasn't a false positive.
Maybe it wasn't.
See, John, I was staying apolitical. They're all criminals. All of them.
I'm cool with that. I'll roll with that. Absolutely. I think we can do that. Be one of those people. I make fun of political parties equally across the spectrum. There's one thing my poli-sci degree taught me is that they're all lying bastards. So
is that your thesis?
That was my thesis. I went in and I was just basically like, it sucks. All of it. No one. You can't trust any. And they're like, congratulations, you passed. I'm like, what? Here, have a cigarette beer.
Yep.
Welcome to the club. We're all terrible.
Here, have a packet.
All right.
The problem with the privacy thing, though, it goes back to the foundation of our country. I mean, it goes all the way back. Think about the fact that voter registrations are public. Now, back 250 years ago,
joke.
That made sense because the record was this, leather book with vellum that lived inside the house or the main office, and you had to actually take the whole thing. But
Now it's
now
online.
in the digital age, yeah, you can fit everything on a thumb drive. And, so yeah, we've got political action groups have been using this data for targeted advertisement. They know where you live, where you work, how many animals you have, whether you're a dog person, a cat person, the names of all your children. And, it's not that this is something that we have to address in terms of ethics as society. And it's beyond just law enforcement. It's beyond just political action groups. It's bigger. And we need to define as a society what is private and what is public, and where do we get to do that? And some very interesting science fiction books have tackled this in the past.
But I really think about this, like how we're starting right now with this conversation. And I sometimes wonder, is this how a budding young Alex Jones started? And
wow.
I'm wondering, is that the end state? Like where we like get really paranoid, we get other people paranoid, and we're like, F it, I can make lots of money off of this paranoia. Is that where
they're tracking me, Drawn Strand? They're tracking me with cell phones and
I would like to take this point. I would like to take this point, and I'd like to introduce you all to our new protein powder, Power X52. It's laced with electrolytes that block the signals.
It's what plants crave.
I mean,
there is too long without coughing.
To bring it back from the Mr. Jones discussion, there is a bill on the floor in the Senate that's like, or someone has proposed that would basically ban data brokers from selling location data or fine them for doing it. Like, this is already hitting like legislation, and it's one of those things like companies. Government needs to tell companies you can't sell people's stuff. You can't do this and monetize this without their consent or without like paying them or whatever it is. That these boundaries are already being set because the politicians realize that they're on the chopping block too. It's not just it cuts both ways, because I can look at Ted Cruz's search history at some point. I don't like
what kind of cyber Pearl Harbor
exactly
would it take for them to stop it? That's the thing. It's not. They're not going to stop it unless something gnarly happens. They get like it's just.
The problem is our politicians don't realize they're already.
But people don't buy cybersecurity. People don't buy cybersecurity teams before something happens. You could go on LinkedIn and start looking at who's hiring cybersecurity people, and maybe guess they had a breach recently or something. It's going to be exactly the same for this data.
You don't think that our people are already being targeted by Pegasus? They probably are. They just don't realize it, right?
I agree.
I don't think the cyber Pearl Harbor thing, like, I love that.
Yeah, you like it.
But on the other hand, I don't think that's ever going to change it, because if we can have the office of, what is it, the escaped my brain just as I was thinking, Office of Personnel Management, that does all the background checks for everyone's top secret get completely breached,
and no one cares.
And yet nobody goes, wait a minute, this data that we might
we implemented certifications for that.
It's not gonna
make that argument a lot of times in conversation. Is I worked for Equifax for 5 years just after the breach. I went there a month after they announced publicly that the breach actually happened, and worked my way into security. It's actually how I kind of switched into security completely. But every person would come up to me and ask, tons of questions, obviously about Equifax and all that stuff. I was like, have you guys ever heard of the OPM breach? I was a government contractor. I did work. My information's in there.
So your SFA information, one of them?
My parents' information, everywhere I've lived for 10 years, any points of contacts to verify all of that, like all that's gone. So you talk about Equifax and a little bit of information, but if you take like collection number 1 and cross that with the OPM data, you have an actionable list of targets that you can really, press.
And that includes every politician.
The SF-86s, you have, by the way, all the things they could potentially be bribed with. Like, they've got all this debt. I wonder if $100,000 would buy those nuclear secrets. Sure would. So, they can hunt for a bargain.
It's
going to have to happen. Is
the SF-86 breach with the OPM thing? Like, that was like, that my data was in there, right? Mm-hmm. They also had data on my spouse. They had data on my wife and all that. And that used to bother me quite a bit. And then I saw the Navy release on Facebook their promotions and who got promoted to what rank, specifically what their role in the Navy was and what their command was. And if you know the specific groups to look for, you can find all of the special forces people in the Navy, and the other branches do this too. And it's all publicly released. So you can say, here's all the special forces people. Here is specifically where they live. Here's their names. Here's their rank. And we're giving that crap away. And it is a security risk. There's no question about it. But it's interesting to me how whenever we've brought that up in the past in the military, people are like, this is just an opportunity for us to go through and, celebrate these people's accomplishments. You're putting them at risk. And there are literally people that have been confronted with the decision to not release this information publicly, and they still decide to do it. And that's the thing that blows my mind is you can make the connections, right, for people and say, if you release this, here's a whole bunch of like SEALs or operators and all these different people. And now I know where they are. I know their names. I know what they're doing. And now we can start tracking their travel. We can start checking passports at different places to find out what operations they're working on. And people at higher ranks in government have been told this is a problem. And they're like, nah, but it makes me feel good to put that information on Facebook.
John, you nailed it.
More likely than not, they just don't understand what the actual impact is. They're writing laws without the expertise of understanding what this real impact is. Yeah. And they think that if they cannot understand it and web it all together to make it actionable themselves, that it simply is not a problem.
And I think that Chris is on point with that. Plus, I think that there's a level of desensitizing.
No, I can't say it.
They're desensitizing us. Yeah, they're desensitizing the world. I mean, you look at how often all these breaches have been mentioned, and each one, it gets a little bit less and less. And you talk to the everyday people, you talk to the politicians. It's, this is a problem, but so much of this data is out there already. So what's the big deal at this point?
So remember the
like
scene.
You talked about Equifax. Is that a cyber Pearl Harbor? No. Okay. What about Target?
OPM.
No. Yeah. OPM. Nope.
I think someone's gonna have to die.
No one gives a shit.
No. So here's what you have to do.
Money.
Remember the scene in Parks and Rec where she's like, she explains cookies, and then she's like, go type in your address on Google Maps. And then he just throws the computer in the garbage. Here's what we need to do. Take politicians, take them to Fog Data Science. Say, type in your little niece that you love so much. Type in her name on here. Oh. Okay. Right. I understand now. I will pass you know what I mean? You have to bring awareness, because there's a certain threshold where once something gets easy enough, it starts to be abused, right? You can, you have to show people not only is this easy to do, it's cheap, and here, let's make it personally relevant for you. Who's someone that you care about? Their information's all here. There's nothing.
So is this security operation? Is this security's fault then? Because we're not correctly communicating risk and ability.
No, it's not even security.
I'm trying to play devil's advocate because I don't think so.
It's not even security.
It's a good thought exercise. I think it is.
Right.
I don't think so.
It's
because
privacy.
if you're looking at all this stuff, like I said, we're not testing it. This is a whole layer of computer security. We're not talking about cons. We're not dealing with it. And there's a whole bunch of people running wild with these data brokers, and it frankly just terrifies the hell out of me on it, because I don't know.
I suppose the question you should ask is what's the legitimate purpose that these groups and organizations actually serve by aggregating and giving this information away? What is the non-horribly scary tinfoil hat?
Well, you find DB Cooper. You find DB Cooper. He jumps out of a plane.
What do you bring to the world? Well, I take the data from these brokers and I take it to the breakers. What is it you say you do here? Well, I sell it to these people. Yeah. Are they good people? Well, no, they don't. So
I'm a data person.
I'm a data person.
You go to Have I Been Pwned and you put in your email address. I'll bet you half the things that pop up there, if you're part of breaches,
you don't even
everybody know. Is. If your email's been around, it's not. Half of it might be actual companies you recognize. The other half is just data aggregators, and they do not care about security themselves. They'll get breached with something they just made public and they made it openly available, and that's a breach to them because they didn't even probably think to have security involved in how things were designed.
Anytime I sign up for something, I just use John's email.
What? That explains a lot. So here's the solution. You want to know what the solution is? It's dead simple. All the data aggregators pull needs to be protected at the same level as HIPAA data. It needs to be treated as PHI. As soon as you do that, this data cannot be sold without having very, very good reasons. Like, look at healthcare information and hospitals were completely locked down in what they could do with this data. And it's simple. It could be like one line in a law. It's like all data aggregation that can be used to identify a particular individual or device shall be treated as PHI. And it should be, because if somebody has like all of my browsing history, they know all the websites that I go to, they know where I walk, they know how I exercise. Honestly, that is PHI. Once we get that classified and put underneath HIPAA, I think that we've solved this. But we've also ran a large number of companies, like very large companies, out of business very quickly.
So the other thing,
it would be disruptive.
That's what I was about to say. That one line
totally
that treat it like HIPAA data would essentially kill those organizations, because they just will. That's how they make money. They sell it. That's their only business, is selling that data. And if they can't, they'll just go away.
Yeah, half of Silicon Valley startups would just dry up immediately.
Being a stupid American, how is this stuff covered underneath GDPR?
It's not personally identifiable
GDPR,
information.
Yeah, as long as they don't have the identifier of like your name.
Look at the Fog Data Science article that specifically says, of course, they claim we don't collect personalized data. We, it's like
useful to the police. Anonymized data is super useful to the police when they're trying to use it for investigation.
Right? They don't. It's
I think that's Noah. You just nailed it. It's like, well, it's not personally identifiable information, but you can totally use it to find the suspects you're looking for.
Exactly. Yes. How did we? Yeah. It's like we smelled marijuana on the internet. it's like, why'd you pull them over?
I heard something screaming from the trunk.
I got some good stories
another story. I want to get a couple more stories in because, like, I think it's funny how Wade is like, I don't want to sound crazy or anything, and quickly it's like, we're your,
anyone who's been doing enough in the privacy battles, like, you all sound crazy. It's how it goes.
The next story is pretty much self-explanatory. I want to move off this because I think this is crazy too, because we're talking about solutions. And we'll probably be right back to the same thing. So Bronwyn, hold that thought. Ireland fined Instagram a record $400 million for children's data. Basically focused on users between the ages of 13 and 17 who were allowed to operate business accounts, which facilitated the publication of phone numbers and email addresses of kids. That's getting to the point, we usually joke about how, there's no teeth in a lot of these fines when it's like $10 million. $400 million is not chump change. Or is it for Meta for Facebook?
Yeah. It'll get appealed and knocked down to, okay, well, your people still want to use Instagram, so I'll give you a little discount.
Right.
But so this is interesting. It does say that it was because child users were allowed to operate business accounts with which automatically publishes the user's phone number and email.
Man, those lemonade stands.
You're 13. You're signing up for your first lemonade stand. You're like, what email should I use to promote?
Lemonade stand as a service. That's not. You got to get it at the top level.
This lemonade stand, I have to monetize it, so I got to use my email and my phone.
Yeah, I like ethical hacker. Nuke them. Every country should sue their asses all the way across the board.
I mean. Supposedly it's like 117 billion annual, so
I mean, 400 million will get negotiated down to a little slap and tickle on the board.
But I go back to
the same article though. It says that WhatsApp got fined 225 million euros for something around the same.
And did they pay it?
That's what I'm trying to figure out as we talk.
It's
what I heard in a completely unrelated thing. Meta just released that the price of per click and eyeball advertisement is going to go up by 10 to 20% next year in Europe.
Just like
only in Ireland.
So
only in Ireland. Also, if you use the Irish flag in your profile, you will get 30% less hits. They just bias everything against Irish people because they reported them.
All right, next story. We'll move on for that one. This one makes me angry. And I think one of the reasons why it makes me angry is I feel like and this is wrong. I know that this is like looking at the past with rose-colored glasses, but I feel like hackers used to at least have some type of like lines they would not cross. In this particular story, the FBI Secret Service are working with Kentucky. There's a $4 million cybercrime against the federal rent assistance and housing funds in Kentucky that was stolen. So this is like literally taking money from people who can't afford houses. And I don't know, am I looking at like, does it seem like the groups are getting a little bit nastier now? Like there's lines they won't cross. Like there's no lines they won't cross. Like they'll go after hospitals. They'll go after this. It used to be like, I don't know. It seems to me like it used to be better. And I know that that's probably wrong.
I think it's because the skill level to perform these attacks, right, is slowly and dropping. And so more and more criminals are able, and with a larger variety of pool of criminals, you're going to get more ones who are probably less heartless.
Well,
that's
think
my first thought on it.
It's business email compromise. You really think they even knew what it was? Hell no. They're just
exactly
like, they're just like, oh, we popped an email from an Office 365 spray. What do we do? I don't know. Ask them for money. Okay, cool. Move on. Like, I doubt they're like, Google them, figure out what they do. No, they're just like, okay, thanks. Please send money to this bank account. Okay, moving on. Like,
when they spray things like that, it's a numbers game for them, right? If they get a hit, they're probably just moving on. But I lost all faith in any sort of moral restriction of attackers when you see all of the increases of attacks like following tragic events, right? Like after a hurricane, even outside of the cybersecurity world, just organizations and donations and charity things that pop up that are complete false.
I'm surprised
in the wake of these things. It's just I'm
surprised you had faith. Says wait.
As a blue teamer, right? Like I have no faith in anything. I've seen everything. Like you name it with an email. Oh, Joe's dog. Oh, a pup. KnowBe4 has a really good one where it's like puppies. Someone lost their puppy and has a picture of the puppy. And this is the only one my wife fell for. So but the attackers have no, like, you'd like to think that maybe they did in the heyday when
there's no honor among thieves.
No, there you go. That's exactly what I can say. Yeah.
It doesn't, like, at the end of the day, whoever, like, because we know this from history. When you steal from people, the only people who lose are people like you. The banks don't pay. Like, it's either the government pays or, like, we end up paying. Like, when law enforcement gets sued, the taxpayers pay the payouts. It's not like it comes out of the policeman's salary. Like, if they go beat someone up in an alley and they have to pay $2 million for that, it's us that pay it. It's like, so of course, like, at the end of the day, you can track ethics of thieves or whatever. But the truth is, if you're willing to steal, you're stealing from your brother or your sister. You're not stealing from, like, there's no Robin Hood, basically is what I'm saying, because the rich or whoever powerful people have figured out how to make it so, like, Robin Hood redirects down to you. Like,
so
it's the privatize the profits, socialize the risks model.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So like,
so on this, because we're talking about this being a business email compromise, and you were talking about how they didn't look at the organization and figure out what they were. The next story that I do want to talk about is directly about that I think is interesting. And this is basically a new ransomware group that literally does do that. It's not completely automated, but they're apparently, and I wanted to get Wade's take on this because he's plugged into this stuff pretty well. But basically, they actually do gain access. Real human beings are going through and spreading through the network, identifying where the most valuable data and critical machines are, using living off the land binaries to do this. So it looks to me, seriously, and they even have ways to counter endpoint and detection and response tools. It looks to me like this is a ransomware group that is literally using red team tactics.
Yeah.
Not just automated, not just using the same thing. Like, they're literally a very well-trained group of people doing these types
they're using
attacks.
Go ransomware. I wrote one of those.
Yeah.
Dude.
Oh God.
Be careful. The guy at Brute would tell will make fun of your ransomware because it's large, because it's written in Go. But
this is where I believe, like, the CIS top 20, like, number 1, like, inventory, knowing your inventory and having a great baseline of your network comes into play, right? If you like, one of my big projects is, maybe I shouldn't, is tracking wall bins across. Like, what do we actually use? What can I just deny throughout the entire organization? And then every now and then there's a program that comes in. It's like, no, we actually use that. And I'm like, God, well, now I have to turn it on again. But
did you see what Sub-T released in Canary tokens, Wade?
Yeah, yes, I did see that.
So Sub-T, let's actually just bring that up. Sub-T released canarytokens.org. Let me go ahead and do this. If you go to Canary Tokens, and I'll share the link with everybody, and Ryan will get that out. He added new Canary tokens where you could create a Canary token sensitive command token. So if somebody uses a specific LOL bin that isn't normally used, it'll generate, if you can click select your token, Ryan, click the down arrow on select your token, and then right there you got sensitive command token. It creates a registry key entry watching for a particular process to run for a specific defined executable, and when it triggers, you will actually get a notification on it, so you can monitor these processes. So I think that's a creative way of dealing with some of these things, right? Because you're right, you can't just say we're gonna block who am I, because there's literally administrative PowerShell scripts that do just that thing.
I think then that just comes down to baselining, like I said, like knowing like Palo Alto, the whatever their VPN uses who am I in it all the time, right? You have to baseline your network, but it's an uphill battle constantly, and then you have to constantly evolve. I think one thing that we don't talk about is the maintenance of detections, right? No one really talks about how you have to constantly tune and change and then possibly just completely get rid of this alert that you created and maybe took hours. That's something that's kind of rough and something that pulls on my heartstrings a lot, that I can't use this detection anymore. It catches it.
Yeah, I've run into that myself.
Fire and forget.
Yeah. They think defense is one and done, and defense, just like the offense, is constantly having to evolve. The amount of time I spend per day working on detections and going over my detections, and every week or two double checking my detections, is just unbelievable.
Yeah. So from my perspective,
the thing I like most about this story, though, is we've hit a ransomware arc where now there are ransomware hipsters that are bespoke and artisanal, and they're going in and they're hiring crafting in the environment.
These are the vinyl hackers.
I was going to say this makes me feel really good, because a lot of people always complain like red teaming isn't realistic. It's not, they don't even do what we do. Like, it's not a real thing. Like real attackers do totally different stuff, but no, I mean, this attacker is doing basically just a pen test plus ransomware. So, yeah, I mean, literally years ago, I wrote a Golang ransomware for a client that was like, we want to test our ransomware detections. I wrote a Golang ransomware. It worked like a charm. I was like, someone's going to figure this out eventually. So it's edification for me as a red teamer that like, maybe these are just red teamers gone wrong. Hopefully they're not, but like, it does show that real attackers are using tools, techniques, procedures that we use in pen tests. And it's not just like, oh no, all they do is like PS exec and, done. Like,
so the bottom line of Corey's message is pay your red teamers well, so they don't turn evil. For all organizations out there, pay them well.
Give your hackers hell. Days slowly go by. All right. All right. Corey, Chris, thanks. Sorry, I've been singing through my intro to SOC class. I'm burnt out. It's been a lot of training. All right, I want to say thank you all for coming as usual. And if you're going to try to take something from this that we can all learn from, we're all screwed. It's doomed. But
pack it in.
If you can join us for the great filter, we're going to have another episode of this next week where we discuss the coming downfall of mankind. So thank you very much for joining, and we can't wait to see you.
But Bronwyn has lightsabers, so it's okay.
Bronwyn knows. I'm probably not joking. She's read enough books. She knows. So with that, everybody, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for coming.